Welcome to our Factoring by Grouping video. Today we'll be talking about another factoring technique. Let's go ahead and see example 1. Factor 7x cubed plus 14x squared plus 3x plus 6. Recall from our previous discussions that the first thing we always want to do is to find the greatest common factor and factor it out, okay? So here, the greatest common factor of 7x cubed, 14x squared, 3x, and 6 is 1. Therefore, we don't want to go ahead and pull it out. Instead, what we're going to do, we're going to start by grouping two terms at a time. So let's go ahead and group this 2, and let's go ahead and group this 2. The next thing we do, we're going to go ahead and find the greatest common factor of this pair and the greatest common factor of this pair, and we're going to factor it out. Well, if we're analyzing 7x cubed and 14x squared, the greatest common factor happens to be 7x squared. Okay? Now, we're going to multiply the 7x squared by x to get this original 7x cubed. Then we have a plus here. And notice that if I divide 14x squared by 7x squared, I just get 2. Okay? In other words, 2 times 7x squared will give me my original 14x squared. Then on this side, I'm going to go ahead and factor out the greatest common factor, which happens to be 3. So I'm going to do plus 3. And notice that if I divide 3x by 3, I just get x. If I divide 6 by 3, I get 2. Now, analyzing this with careful attention, we notice already that we have a factor of x plus 2 here and a factor of x plus 2 here. In other words, that's a common factor for both terms in there. Therefore, we can go ahead and factor it out. And notice what we're left with is just 7x squared plus 3. The next thing we will do, we will actually take a look at each of these factors and see if we can factor them further. In this case, there's not much we can do, so we're going to just box it because we just found the factor form of our polynomial. In other words, 7x cubed plus 14x squared plus 3x plus 6 can be written out as x plus 2 times 7x squared plus 3. So let's go ahead and do another example. Let's take a look at example 2. Factor 35x cubed plus 21x squared plus 30x plus 18. Again, the first thing we should do is go ahead and take a look at the greatest common factor of all the 4 terms in here. One more time, the greatest common factor of 35x cubed, 21x squared, 30x, and 18 happens to be 1. Therefore, what we can do, we can just start by grouping them into pairs in this case, okay? Now, notice for the first pair, the greatest common factor happens to be 7x squared. Now, let's go ahead and divide 35x cubed by 7x squared. Notice you will get 5x. Then if you divide 21x squared by 7x squared, you're going to get 3. So that's plus 3. Now we take a look at 30x and 18 and find out what is the greatest common factor. In this case, it happens to be 6. Okay, so we have plus 6. 6 times 5x will give you the 30. And 6 times 3 will give you the 18. Again, one more time, pay close attention here as we have a common factor of 5x plus 3 for both terms. So let's go ahead and factor it out. So we have 5x plus 3. And what you're left with is 7x squared plus 6. The next thing we do, we take a look at the first factor, 5x plus 3, and see if we can factor anything else in there. And since we cannot do that, we can go to the next factor, 7x squared plus 6. There's nothing we can factor out in there. So we can say that this is the factor form of our polynomial. In other words, 35x cubed plus 21x squared plus 30x plus 18 can be written out as 5x plus 3 times 7x squared plus 6. And that concludes our video on factoring by grouping. So, good luck with your homework.